In the quiet, mist-laden village of Thornwood, strange tales were whispered from generation to generation. They spoke of curses, spirits, and ancient shadows that roamed beyond the veil of darkness. And among these tales was Leon's story, the boy born without a shadow. Leon had always been different. From the moment he entered the world, villagers gasped in fear as he lay in his mother's arms, the sunlight casting no shadow beneath him. The midwife crossed herself and muttered prayers, while his mother turned her face away, tears streaming down her cheeks. To the superstitious people of Thornwood, shadows were more than just tricks of light. They were believed to be proof of the soul's connection to the body. And Leon's absence of one, that was an ill omen. Growing up, Leon knew nothing but alienation. The other children avoided him, their parents warning them of his bad luck. Even within his own home, he felt like an unwelcome presence. His father would refuse to look him in the eyes, his mother would mutter nervously when he entered the room, and his siblings treated him like a stranger. Loneliness became his closest companion, and silence his refuge. But as lonely as Leon's existence seemed, there was something else, something he couldn't quite place. At first, it was subtle, a prickling sensation on the back of his neck, as though unseen eyes were watching him. At night, he'd hear soft creaks and whispers that seemed to hover just beyond the edge of hearing. Occasionally, he'd catch a flicker of movement in the corner of his vision, but when he looked, there was nothing there. He convinced himself it was the tricks of an overactive imagination, the residue of fear from a lifetime of superstition. But deep down, he didn't believe it. As Leon entered his teenage years, the strange occurrences started to escalate. One night, while staring into the cracked mirror in his room, he realized his reflection didn't match his pose. He raised his hand, and just a fraction of a second later, his reflection followed. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, and tried to reason with himself. Maybe the mirror was warped. Maybe he was overtired. But nothing could explain the sensation in his chest, a bone-deep feeling that whispered, something is wrong. Then there were the whispers. They started faintly. Single words, so soft he thought they were his imagination. But over time they grew louder, distinct, insistent. Leon would hear his name carried on the wind, spoken from the shadows in his room, etched into the silence of the night. Leon, they would call, sometimes gentle, sometimes guttural. He'd wake from fleeting nightmares, drenched in sweat and breathless, convinced the whispers had come from something in the room, not his mind. It all came to a chilling peak the night Leon sat alone by the roaring fire in the family cottage. The flames danced wildly, illuminating the room with flickering brilliance. As he slouched in his chair, the weariness of the day heavy on him, his gaze was drawn to the far corner, where the shadows pooled unnaturally thick. And then in the moments between the flickers of firelight, he saw something move. At first, he thought it was the flames casting shapes against the wall, but the figure that emerged wasn't part of any trick of light. It was humanoid but featureless, its outline dark and jagged like smoke trapped in a glass. It didn't walk forward, it slid closer, soundless and inevitable. Leon froze, his breath catching in his throat, unable to move or scream. "Leon," the figure whispered, its voice a low rasp. "I have returned." Leon scrambled back, his chair toppling over in his panic. What are you?" he stammered. It tilted its head toward him, though its face was nothing but void. "I am you," it said simply. "Your shadow, your soul, cast away but never gone." Leon's heart thundered in his chest, the words washing over him like ice water. No, you're not real," he gasped. "This is some kind of trick." "Is it?" the shadow murmured. Before Leon's eyes, it dissolved, bleeding into the corners of the room. And through his shock, he noticed something chilling. His reflection in the glass window now mirrored him perfectly, down to his terrified expression. But where his body should have cast no shadow, there on the floor behind him lay a faint, flickering silhouette. In the days that followed, Leon found himself constantly checking his reflection, the shadow behind him a haunting reminder of what he had seen. He tried to convince himself it was a figment of his imagination, a trick of the light or a dream from which he could awaken. Yet the shadow persisted, lurking at the edges of his vision, a constant reminder that he was no longer alone. It was there when he woke, when he slept, when he dared to close his eyes and dream. No longer just a whisper in the dark, but a presence a part of him he could neither deny nor escape. In the quiet of Thornwood, where shadows held secrets untold, Leon lived with the knowledge that he was never truly alone.